Hello, my name is Dan Skip Allen, and this is Bleacher Features, season number 3. And every episode I get a guest that comes on, and we discuss a sports film. Some people may not consider Pool a sports film, but I do. So does my guest. So we're going to be talking about The Hustler, and my special guest today is Mrs. Rachel Silvestrini. Rachel, welcome, and thank you for coming on Bleacher Features with me.
Of course, yeah, it's such a blast. This is anything you can bet on pretty much is a sport. So I'm all for this.
Yeah, pool. I always consider pool and chess and card movies to be in the genre of sports movies. So I mean, when I put a list out last year, and you signed up and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk about The Hustler," I was like, "Oh, great!"
It's so good. I mean, yeah. It's classic Newman. Yeah. It's just epic.
This guy on my shirt, he made a sequel. I don't like it as much as The Hustler.
I mean, most sequels don't tend to live up to the expectations of the original, so I can't really be too angry about it, but it was entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, it's Tom Cruise and Paul Newman. And Scorsese. I mean, that's a great mix, but it's not the original, The Hustler. And so, you chose this film. When I put up the sign up, you picked this film. I mean, this is a film that I loved, and I was surprised. I was surprised that you picked this film. Huh. You picked another film too. Well, you picked two more films, but we're not gonna get into that right now. But this one is one that I've watched many times, and of course, for Bleacher Features, we have to watch it again and get it fresh in our minds. So it came out in 1961. So it's a black and white film. The cast are Paul Newman as Fast Eddie Felson, Jackie Gleason as Minnesota Fats, Piper Laurie as Sarah Packard, George C. Scott as Burt Gordon, Michael Constantine as Big John, Myron McCormick as Charlie Burns, Murray Hamilton as Finley. Directed by Robert Rosen, screenplay by Rosen and Sidney Carroll, and the score was Kenyon Hopkins. Of all that stuff that I just said, you got any thoughts on any of that?
I mean, what an incredible group of people. First of all, Jackie Gleason is just like one of my favorite people to watch on screen. But yeah, and Piper Laurie was just like, she's just such this great like femme fatale. Like she's just cool, like she's kind of a broad from back in those days. I really love her. And I mean, it's such a great gathering of just epic talent. And when you get that group together, like you see the genius that comes out on screen.
Yeah, it's a really good group of character actors and some stars with George C. Scott and Jackie Gleason that kind of play roles that usually George C. Scott's in these movies where he's bigger than life, and Jack Gleason's playing opposite Burt Reynolds or whatever, and he's in these slapstick comedies, but he's playing it straight. And George C. Scott is basically playing opposite Paul Newman, who's Fast Eddie Felson, and he's kind of the lead,
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into this. Eddie and Burt or Charlie are at a bar near Pittsburgh, and like I said, just chime in wherever you feel like you want to say something here. Eddie and Charlie are at a bar in Pittsburgh, near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Eddie's drunk. He bets on a trick shot, and then of course he gets the guy. The guy comes in on the bet that he wants to bet the $20 on the trick shot. He's like, "Oh, I'll bet." That's the bartender and the guy that kind of runs the pool hall at the time.
Which $20 back then is no small chump change. Like that's a lot for them to bet back then.
Yeah. $20 goes a long way back in the 60s. Not as much today.
Not quite so far, but
So then we get the opening credits, and then we're at a different pool hall in it's called Ames. I thought it was in Iowa when I was rewatching. I thought it was in Iowa, and then I said, no, it's not in Iowa. It's just the pool hall called Ames, not Ames, Iowa. But that's just me. I just
which I've actually been to Ames, Iowa multiple times, and I was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh God, just all the memories came flooding back, and I'm like, thank God I'm not there anymore.
Yeah, Iowa. I would not be wanting to go to Iowa.
No, there are parts of Iowa. Des Moines is great, but Ames, not my favorite city.
All right, so he's at a different pool, and he ends up betting 10 grand in one night. Who's gonna? I mean, he's trying to win 10 grand. That's Charlie and him come up with this number 10 grand that they want to. He's and Charlie's like, no, you're not gonna win 10 grand. Yeah. Okay, then he lies to the guy at the pool hall, says he's not fast. He obviously his reputation has preceded him. So people were saying, aren't you Fast Eddie Felson? And he kind of lies and says, no, I'm not Fast Eddie Felson. Then eventually he tells the truth.
Yeah. Well, I love watching movies from a bygone era like this and just thinking how, I instantly go to how fast would this movie dissolve with modern technology? And it's right there. Right there when they're like, aren't you this guy? Like, no, someone would be on Google these days and take a picture of his face, image search it, and the movie would be over.
Yeah.
But it is really fun to play around and kind of, take yourself out of what technology has brought us now and put you into a place of oh my God, people didn't know everything about everyone back then. You could literally disappear and never be seen again. Yeah. Where here now in these days it's really hard. But I always found that really fun when I watch old movies.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Okay, so the guy tells them all about Minnesota Fats and that they should leave. That basically this guy's bigger than life. He's the best. You guys better get out of here now because you're not gonna win against Minnesota Fats. He comes in every night at 8 p.m. sharp. And then Minnesota finally comes in, and those guys are still there. They don't leave. Minnesota says, you shoot a good stick. I hear you've been looking for me. Are you a hustler? I mean, he right away, he just calls him out right away.
Well, yeah. I mean, both of those guys, they're, at the top of their game. They're not there to pussyfoot around. They just beat it straight to the truth, Yeah. Fuck it. There's no time to dally.
No. So Minnesota decides he wants to bet $100 a game. Eddie says $200 a game. Minnesota, you shoot my kind of pool. This is what we're getting into right off the bat. We don't mess around here with these guys. This is high stakes pool in the 60s. $200 a game is a lot of money. You said $20 a game. $200 a game. I mean, who's got $200 to blow today, let alone back then?
Seriously, that's like a mortgage payment back then. That's like 6 months of mortgage payments back then.
Yeah, and this is going to be on YouTube, so whatever. I'm not monetized or anything, so
okay.
But if you could cut it down, that's fine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, be yourself. I'd rather have you be yourself than.
I mean, I can edit myself. I just didn't know if we were actually live or if it was getting recorded or something. I was
it's being recorded. It's not going to go. It's not going to go till the summer. So
okay.
So all right. So don't you shoot my.
Just that they eye each other up during that whole are you a hustler, they're both just playing this very silent alpha game, and it's just so much fun to watch because most audiences are used to seeing Jackie Gleason cracking jokes and being the funny guy, and here he's dead serious, and Paul Newman's the one that's kind of the jokester young kid, and they're both just trying to be, the puff-chested alphas of the room.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So then Eddie's like, you didn't leave me much, Minnesota. You left it. Didn't leave you much. And Fats goes, left me just enough. So when you're the best, you don't have to have much to work with, and you can make something. So then Eddie marveled at Minnesota's game, dances, moving. Okay, and this is him describing Minnesota Fats here. Dances, moving around the table, says it's like he's playing a violin. Those lines are some great lines. Like he's describing Minnesota Fats playing a game of pool. Those are such great lines, if you ask me.
I mean, it just goes to show like just how seamless and like elegant he is. Yeah. Like he's not like this bare bones thug. I'm sure he could get his hands dirty, but like he's just a guy who knows what he is. He's very precise, and he just moves to the beat. Like it's just like I've seen guys like that play pool before, and it is mesmerizing. Just to watch how fluid they are. It's like watching a pitcher in slow motion, like it's like a mini ballet. Everything moves. There's timing to everything. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. I've been beat by a guy. I didn't realize I lost. That's how fast this guy beat me. It was just like, wow. Yeah. I haven't played pool since.
That much.
Yeah, I was like, nah, don't want to play this game ever again. Minnesota wins game after game. He cleans Eddie out. Then finally, Minnesota misses. Eddie, you didn't leave much when you missed. Minnesota, that's what it's all about. He finally misses a shot game after game. He beats Eddie. Then he finally misses a shot. Then Eddie comes back and wins a bunch. And then Eddie decides to bet Minnesota $1,000 a game. This is in the 60s. They're betting $1,000 a game on a pool game. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you're just like, this is male stupidity in its perfect, like in its perfect image. Like it's just like I've been around men with lots of money and nothing to do, and literally watching them bet on the most ridiculous things when I'm like, that was 3 months of my rent that you just callously, like casually bet on, like whether the dog was going to sniff his butt or not, like just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then you get into see this and it's like, hey, you just see people throwing money around and you're like, you're going to write a check that you can't cash one of these days. And some of the best movies are made about stuff like that. So
yeah, watching a lot of poker on ESPN. The prop bets. Some of these poker players, they're just so bored that the prop bets are ridiculous with these guys. That's just a side thing that I've watched over the years with watching card players.
Oh yeah. But it's fun when they're also like when they stop betting money and they start betting like things, and it gets weird, and then it goes very like Benny and June, where they start betting like their kids for a week. They're like, you get to take my kid for a week, and they're like, oh, fine.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So the pool game isn't over until Minnesota says it's over. So this is when Eddie is up so much by this point, but it's not his pool hall. It's not his game. So Fats has to say when it's over. And he asks him, is it over? And of course, they end up playing for 25 hours straight. But he's drinking this entire time. Eddie's drinking. So he's pretty much sloshed at this point.
Well, you got to find your calories somewhere, like.
So he's up $18,000 at this point. And then, of course, Eddie goes to the Minnesota goes to the bathroom, washes his hands, combs his hair, cleans up, washes his face a little bit, cleans up, puts his jacket on, and he comes back out and he says, Fast Eddie, let's play some pool. And then that was it for Eddie. After that, Eddie is drunk but won't quit, which he should have quit. We all know when we're watching it, why didn't you quit, Eddie? I mean, so then Eddie threatens Charlie to get the money, the leftover money, the last money that they had, the money that, he like, give me the money, give me the money. He says it's his money. And then, of course, Eddie loses it all back to Minnesota Fats, except for $200. Minnesota leaves Eddie, and then Eddie passes out. So this is the end of his encounter with Minnesota Fats. He ends up passing out on the floor, and Minnesota just walks out the door.
Yeah, it's very Guys a Dollish, where they're in the sewers playing craps for like 3 days or something like that, and they're like, the game's over when I say it's over. It's very, I like how they play off of each other. They're both very similar, but in like very, very different ways. But it just goes to show you the hubris of youth. And maybe this was that generation's version of don't drink and text. Maybe don't drink and bet. It's a very
Facebook in my back in my younger days. I stopped drinking. I've been sober 7 years. But
yeah, don't drink and use your phone, folks. It never leads to good things.
Now I learned that the hard way. So now we fast forward. We're in a bus station. Eddie meets a woman at a bus station. Bus is leaving at 8 p.m. She says that wouldn't give us much time, would it? Wow, that wouldn't give us much time, would it?
I mean, have you seen Paul Newman? He is so handsome.
Yeah. So that's how we first meet. That's how we first meet Sarah. Basically, she's the woman at the bus station. So
she's a broad, She's just ballsy, and just I identify with her. She is one of my favorite characters. Yeah, she's just like, hey, how you doing? It's very interesting to me how back then there were female characters that got to act that way, and it was very much like a stereotype of the time or whatever, to always have like that, like, that ballsy, busty broad in these movies, but then vilify them, and it's like, but they did so well. They're such great characters. Why would you care? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, she was definitely different than a lot of those actresses of that time, the character that she played. Eddie says, "Have a nice trip," but this is kind of a comeback, and this is going to come back in a little while. And then he wakes up drunk at the bus station later that day. Woman finds him at the restaurant later that day. Woman wasn't waiting for him. So the woman, I'm using the term woman, but it's actually Sarah. He ends up waking up at the bus station, getting woken. Then he goes to a restaurant later that day, and he's like, wait a minute, did you take a bus? And she was sitting there at the restaurant, and she says, I live close by. I didn't need to take a bus. I just like to go to the bus station, and I come to this restaurant as well, and I live close by. She wanted to get out of the house and just go play, basically see people. Just the bus station, she get to see people and get to see different characters and just all kinds of different types of people walking by, and of course,
there's better than people watching, and what better place to do it than someplace where people are constantly coming and going? Like. I understand that. I traveled so much in the past that like I used to be able to, my friends and I used to have like hours layovers in airports. And so we would sit around and like make up stories about people and be like, they're coming in from Bangkok because they're with the Yakuza, and like, you just keep yourself entertained. And dude, I'm telling you, some of the stories we came up with, I wish I had their lives. But but yeah, I totally get that. Like women back in those days, like weren't necessarily, going out of the house very much. Like they had jobs, but not a lot of them were allowed to do that. Like this was still an era where like a woman couldn't have her own bank account unless it was signed by her father or her husband or something like that. So like, yeah, if the only way that she can get out and like have this like kind of fantasy life is by walking through a bus stop and going to a diner and hearing people talk, then yeah, girl, go for it.
Yeah. So then she says that Eddie lives in a locker at the bus station. You know, she's basically sizing Eddie up. Mac, the bartender, trusts her to, and then she doesn't have to pay her tab because Mac, the bartender, basically, you know, he trusts her that she's going to pay her tab, that she'll come up with the money. Yeah. Then he tells her that she's a college student. She goes to college on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the other days of the week she drinks. Wow, what a great life, right? I know some girls that did that, went to college on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Not exactly those days, but and drank the other days. I did know some people like that.
Yep, I know a lot of those people.
Eddie tells her, okay, she finally tells Eddie her name's Sarah. We're talking about it already. We've already mentioned it. Her name is Sarah. Eddie. So Eddie offers to take her home. She's not drunk. She's lame. Okay, so this is where these guys are still feeling each other out here as far as this stuff goes. Eddie thinks she's drunk, but she says, I'm not drunk, I'm lame. Basically, she's got a bad leg. So it just seems like she might be drunk, but she's not drunk. She can handle her liquor. She just has a bad leg.
Yeah, she has a little hitch in her giddy up, as they used to say.
And then she says, why her? Why pick me? Why pick her? Which that's any woman that runs into this guy now at the bus station and at the restaurant. Why me? Why are you picking me? What is it about me? And then Eddie kisses her. Of course, Paul Newman, Piper Laurie. That's it's a movie kiss right there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So she says he's too hungry, which means we see that as the viewer watching the movie. We know he's already we've seen what he's been through, and so now he's kind of really kind of going a little bit, forcing himself on her a little bit. So he is kind of hungry. That's a good way of putting it. You're hungry. You're too hungry.
He's a little forceful, but also back in those, I hate saying back in the day and using it as an excuse, but it was a different era and men were more aggressive in their pursuits. But she also doesn't seem like a girl that couldn't handle herself, Yeah. So his advances were a little aggressive, but also, he's Paul Newman and he's charming and stunningly attractive.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but that's just the way things go.
I agree with you.
A little bit more aggressive.
And I'm a guy, so I know. I agree 100%. Paul Newman was a good-looking man back in the day.
If Paul Newman looked at you the way that he looked at Sarah, you would consider it.
Yeah.
Let's just say it
no, you're right. So he leaves her with the liquor, and he returns to the bus station for his stuff. Then he rents a room. Then he hustles some guys in various bars. He's trying to make some money, trying to get a bankroll. So he hustles some guys in some bars. And then he goes back there waiting to find Sarah there. He goes back to the restaurant and Sarah's there. She finds him was it the bus station or the restaurant? I think waiting for Sarah and finds her. I think it's a restaurant. I think it's
the restaurant too. Yeah.
Yeah. And she comes walking in and she's shocked that he was there. She wasn't expecting him to be there. Then they leave together, spend the night together at Sarah's house. She says she's got troubles and maybe he's got troubles and they should leave each other alone. Wow, what a great line. I got troubles, you got troubles. We should just leave each other alone. What a great line. Yeah.
I mean, if only people these days were that self-aware. That's all I'm saying. Oh, how times have changed.
Yeah, what a great line there by Piper Laurie. He says he'll get his stuff from the hotel and be over later. That's how he answers it. I'll get my stuff and I'll be over later. Basically, no, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna come over later.
No, not come over. He's moving in.
Moving in. That's right. She buys Eddie a lighter. I guess that was her way of saying, okay, all the stuff that we've been going back and forth, this cat and mouse game between each other. Here you go. I'm with you. Here's a lighter. This is my way of saying we're together. It's a great way to say we're together. Oh, here's a lighter. It's a nice lighter. Don't get me
You sound like it's a plastic Bic lighter. Like you didn't pop down to the 7-Eleven. Like it's a nice lighter.
Yeah.
Like those things are made to last.
Yeah. So she asks him where he goes when he goes out. All right, this is we're gonna get into some of the good stuff here, and he asks him what's in his case, and he asks her where she gets the money to pay the groceries, the rent, and the other stuff. Ooh, and this is the good stuff here. And then Charlie finds Eddie at Sarah's place. So Charlie, okay, when he lost and he passed out and he had $200, this is where they kind of go forward here. He leaves Charlie in the hotel room, and Charlie finds him. Charlie asks around, and he finds Eddie. And we're like, holy crap, Charlie, what the heck is Charlie doing that? Yeah, you never thought you'd see Charlie again,
I mean, yeah, like I said, you could easily hide back in those days, but also people were way more willing to talk to strangers. So you gotta be real careful who sees you, because people had big mouths back then.
Yeah. So Charlie wants him to go back on the road with him, but all Eddie wants to do is go back to play Minnesota. So this whole entire time he's with Sarah, he's got that on his mind.
Oh yeah,
Minnesota. That's the thing that's been itching in his craw the whole time. I want to play Minnesota again, because he knows what happened, and he knows what he did was wrong, and he knows he could do it better.
I don't know if he knows what he did was wrong. I think that he knows that there's a better way to do it, and I don't think he feels any remorse for anything that happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things where he's like, I lost. I can do this better. Yeah, I spent a lot of money and I stole from my friend, but I'm gonna make it up to him in the long run. Like it's such a gambler's mentality of like, this will all pay off in the end.
Yeah. So Charlie's like telling him, I care about you. We ate good. We slept late. We drank whiskey. We had dames, and then Charlie's like, I have $1,500. And he's like, we could just go to Miami and lie in the sun. And he says, with what? Of course, that's the $1,500. Then Charlie's like, don't worry, he'll raise it. Of course, he's got the $1,500. So he basically had the money, and he kind of shortchanged Eddie that whole thing with Minnesota Fats. He didn't give him all the money, and he didn't tell him all the money that he had won. He kept the money. So Eddie calls him a small time Charlie. Play on his name, Charlie. Small time.
Well, it's also a massive insult.
Yeah.
That's a big deal back then, guys.
Yeah. For the times, it's an insult. You're absolutely right. Sarah cries because Eddie wants more than just a pool hall and a book on the side. Why did he have to come back here for anyway? Okay, so she's upset because she's now finding out who Eddie really is, and she's crying. And Charlie wants that pool hall and a book on the side, but Eddie doesn't want that. He wants something more, and he believes he's destined to be great, and he's a better, and that means that in Sarah's eyes, he's going to leave her behind.
Well, of course. I mean, I don't think something that she discovers. I think it's something that she comes to realize and accept. Like, I will tell you this. Girls know exactly who you are the moment we meet you. What we do is we put filters in our brains, and we do not pay attention to red flags. We think that there are character flaws that we can fix because we all have Florence Nightingale syndrome. We think that we can fix everybody. Same way the guys have white knight syndrome. It's not the case, guys. Stop doing this. It's how people get hurt. It's how you hurt yourselves. So I think that she's just like because they've known each other. And so she, like she said, she's got her troubles. He's got his. So like, she just thinks that by fixing his problems, they're going to fix hers, but she can't fix him. Like, you don't fix other humans. And so, you know, her breaking down and crying is just her realizing that, you know, that's not what you should do with other people. And that's it. Like, people tell you who they are from the very beginning, and he did. And she just didn't listen. So, guys, stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to people.
Yeah.
And listen to people. But yeah, she very much had the whole damsel like, why don't you don't love me enough to change.
Guys aren't going to change. Very few. I mean, it took me a long time to change for myself, being an alcoholic and just being now 7 years sober. So.
That's the thing, you change for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't change for other people, because changing for the other people is a temporary Band-Aid. You change for yourself, and that's what makes things permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So they had basically a contract, which they describe as a contract of depravity. We have
so great, such a great way to call it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. And they say, we have sex and stay here in the room. What else do they have? What else do they have? She calls him a pool room bum. So basically, she's upset. Basically, after all this stuff that goes on, that basically they had no life. They just stand on and they have sex and don't do anything, you know. But
they're good time friends, and yeah. She had a, you know, Dreamweaver moment, and yeah, that's not the reality of the situation.
No. So ends up going into a pool room or a card room and meets Bert. That's George C. Scott. We see him earlier in the film in the pool room with Minnesota Fats. Now he's going to play a bigger part in the film. Gives Eddie a lecture about character. Okay, character is going to be something that comes back to the film later on, but we're not there yet. Gives Eddie a lecture about character. Tells him all about Minnesota Fats. Asks him if he can get personal. Says he had Minnesota hooked, but he's a born loser. You're calling Eddie Felson a born loser. You know, George C. Scott, Bert is like, whoa, who the heck do you think you are calling me a born loser? Bert says he doesn't make bad bets. Then he tells him that he would take 70% to 25 if he goes in with Bert. That means Bert's going to take 70% of his earnings.
But he's going to put up the money.
Yeah.
So that's a big, like you can kind of understand that, especially with a guy who literally has proven himself unable to make smart bets. So the review is not too terribly off for what's fair in this situation.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. So he hustles a nice pool hall, hustled at a nice pool hall, bets the kid $100 for 10 games. Okay, this is interesting here. Kid quits, but Eddie gets beat up by some guys after the games were over. They break his thumbs at Arthur's. He ends up back at Sarah's. Asks Sarah if he's a loser. Okay, so instead of going in there and just kind of maybe losing a couple games to this kid out of the 10 games, he runs the kid over for $100. And about 5 guys in the bar are like, you're a pool hustler. You know what we do with pool hustlers around here? I mean, why? He didn't need to do it.
I mean, I think we've established already that Eddie is kind of a freaking moron. He's all ego. He's all instant. He's all reaction. He's no thought. He's just go. And also I think he's feeling a little like, you know, his ego's hurt. Like, everybody's been calling him a loser. Like, he gets kicked out of his girlfriend's place. His best friend is just trying to like talk him into his best friend's talking to him like he's not going to be able to beat Minnesota. So he feels like everybody thinks he's just this loser. And so now he goes in and finds this kid. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to flex on him so hard. And it bites him in the butt, because he loses, like they break his thumbs. Like I don't know if you know how to play pool here, kids, but you kind of need your thumbs.
Yeah.
They're kind of important.
Yeah. So then they compare Pool. He compares Pool to a jockey riding a horse. Eddie tells Sarah she will settle down and write a book about Eddie called The Hustler. So we get the title of the movie in this little bit of dialogue. And I like that comparison of comparing a jockey riding a horse to Pool, because you're on a runaway animal. When you're winning and you're up and you're moving, you're just moving, and you can't stop. And that's kind of like a jockey riding a horse. I love that. I love that analogy that he uses there.
Yeah, it's done beautifully with this movie.
Yeah, and then he says, "Oh, you're going to write a book," because Sarah's a writer and she's doing some of her homework or whatever. And he realizes that she's a writer, so she should write a book about him and call it The Hustler.
Which is always something good to discover about the girl you've been sleeping with for God knows how long at this point. Oh, wait, you write? Cool.
Yeah. So then Bert sets Eddie up with a match in Louisville, Kentucky during race week, during Derby week. So there's a lot of people wanting to do some bets up there. And then when he sets, obviously Eddie's got some money. So Eddie takes Sarah out for a nice dinner. He breaks the news about going out of town. Of course, Sarah isn't happy about it. Neither one of them knows about love if it was coming down the street. This is a line from Eddie. He says, neither one of us knows about love if it was coming down on the street at us. Like if we saw it coming down at the street. And I mean, there's so many great lines in this film. And today, of course, people wouldn't say these lines. But back in the 60s, these are great lines. These are just amazing lines.
I mean, I find it incredibly depressing watching these movies, knowing that people these days don't talk like that. And if you do, they just kind of look at you like you hit your head or something. But they are just stunning lines, and they ring with such truth. I miss that bygone era of wonderful, like, it's one of those things that you're like, you're so emotionally stupid about yourself, but you can accurately verbally broadcast this universal thought. Like, why are you such a dichotomy?
Yeah, that's very interesting. That is very interesting about the dialogue in the script, and then the person that we're watching saying the dialogue.
Yeah, it's like you're a moron, but you're elegant and eloquent. Like, how?
No, you're absolutely right. So Sarah's not happy about it. I know. And then she says that she loves him, and she tells Eddie her story. Basically tells Eddie that she's being taken care of by somebody else, that somebody's been paying her bills and giving her money so she can take care of herself, an older gentleman or an older person. Then this convinces Eddie to take her to Louisville with him. Bert tells him on the train ride to Louisville about Minnesota and Eddie learning about himself. So Bert kind of breaks the story about who Eddie, Minnesota really is, and how Eddie can learn from Minnesota.
Yeah,
who Minnesota is, and he could learn from Minnesota that way. So I thought that was good that Bert kind of like broke down and started giving him some information for it, because Bert's kind of been like not giving a whole lot of information out about all this stuff, you know.
He's a very cards close to the chest kind of guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't say a lot, but when he says things, you listen. You know, like
yeah. Bert buys the hotel clerk off to get 2 rooms adjoining. Of course, you know, this is Derby week. There's no hotel rooms anywhere in Louisville, Kentucky. But he buys the clerk at the hotel off, gets 2 adjoining rooms. Bert and Sarah have it out with each other. I said, now, this is basically, if you remember The Color of Money, there's a whole sequence between Master Antonio and Paul Newman talking about Tom Cruise. Well, this is basically the same scene. Instead, it's George C. Scott and Paulie which is Sarah's character, talking about Eddie and who has Eddie's best interests and all this kind of stuff. Very similar scenes in both films, which is I give Scorsese a little bit of credit on that.
The fighting for one's soul, whether it's your own or somebody else's, like, is very common, especially in Scorsese movies. But yeah, I do love how they tied that in from between this one and The Color of Money. And it is really interesting to see how two people can be on such opposing issues, but yet both be completely right.
Yeah.
Like that's your version of perfect for them, and you're not misguided in that, like, but you're, maybe not taking the person who you're fighting for's opinion into account.
Yeah, absolutely. So we finally meet this guy, James Finley, to Eddie and Sarah at the dog track, or the horse track. James Finley. And so Eddie asks to play pool at Finley's place. They agree to come over after the horse races and then play pool at 9 or 10 p.m. Bert says something to Sarah. She throws her drink in his face, and Eddie comes over. So this is basically trying to convince Sarah to leave Eddie alone so Eddie and him can go to this guy's house and play pool. He knows how to press her buttons, basically, Bert does. And I don't like this side of Sarah, though. This is a side of Sarah we don't like. I didn't like her being this way.
I mean, nobody likes a girl when she becomes possessive. That's just a fact of life, male or female at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's, first of all, I wish I could throw a drink in someone's face. It's such an old school, like, but with, I lived in LA, drinks are super expensive, and I don't think it's worth it usually. But I've actually had a drink thrown in my face, and let me tell you, it is the most shocking thing to happen. You're like, did you see it? Like, I was shocked more than like pissed off. But just having those scenes in those movies, like, literally you pissed a woman off so much that she threw her drink in your face. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. She stormed off, and they got the effect that they, were wanting. But it also just goes to show, like, how much of a trope it is to use women's emotions against them. And it's like the most vile form of gaslighting. It's like, even if you're doing it for their own good, like,
yeah,
it's just one of the things, and you're just like, sorry.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. So Bert says she had too much to drink. That's his excuse for it. So, all right. So then they say okay. He goes to Finley's place, and Finley breaks it to him that they're not playing pool, they're playing billiards, and billiards is a different game than pool.
Yes.
But then Eddie's like, no, they still want to play. He still wants to play because he can beat the guy. It's his ego once again, getting the best of him. So they agree from $100 bet to $500 bet, playing a game that he really hasn't played, but he's playing anyway, and they're betting. Okay, so Eddie ends up losing $2,000 here. Now he's already down $2,000 at this point, and Eddie says to Bert. Of course, Bert's like, man, let's get the heck out of here. We're losing. And he goes, Bert says, I can beat him. Bert says, he's still a loser. Here comes that from earlier in the film when he told him he was a loser. You're a loser. You can't win. And of course, Eddie thinks he's so confident. He thinks he can win, even though he's been losing this entire time.
Yeah. It's like, wow, what do you think is going to change? You think the inspiration and talent fairy is suddenly going to bless you? Like, are you just now getting the hang of the game? Like,
yeah. So then Eddie goes and gets his own money from the room upstairs, or where Sarah was, where she's fallen asleep or whatever. He gets it from her. He gets the money from her. So Eddie keeps losing, even when Bert and Sarah beg him to stop playing. They're begging him, stop. Keeps playing. Finley asks if Bert takes a check. This boy, you're like, what? They fast forward enough into this that Eddie turns the tables on Finley, which were like shocked. When you're watching it, you're like what? How did that happen?
It was one of those where you're just like, did they seriously just do that?
Yeah, it's shocking. You're like, there's no way he turned the table on him like that, but he did. And that's when Finley asked Bert if he could take a check. I'm like, Jesus, holy crap. Then Bert, of course, says cash only. Then Finley says it was an interesting evening, says they should come again. Bert goes to the hotel to give Sarah some. Okay, so, the whole argument with Sarah and Bert earlier, there was this kind of agreement, basically, that not only is Bert paying Eddie, he's paying Sarah of whatever they win. So then he goes back to the hotel after all this is said and done. He goes there to give her her money.
Yeah.
Give her some of the money. But then he kisses her. No, you're like, no, you don't want that.
I mean, not shocking for females that are watching this.
Yeah.
It's an awful move that some men like to play, and especially back in the 60s. It was very, very prevalent back then.
Yeah.
Not a move to pull these days. But yeah, he screws things up, and like he's basically like Stucky, kind of from oh my God, sorry, the name of the movie just went right out of my head. Not Pretty in Pink. Wow, Pretty Woman. The lawyer.
Oh, Alexander.
If Edward's doing this, I may as well. Like, it's a very like skeevy vibe too.
Yeah. So this is when things really take a turn for the worst, and we don't even see this coming. But she writes on the mirror, "Perverted, twisted, crippled," and we see that she has committed suicide in the bathroom. And then when, of course, Eddie comes and he finds out what's going on, he starts choking Bert. He literally wants to kill Bert. He's choking him. This is maybe go ahead.
No, I'm just saying this movie, it was such kind of a lighthearted, like, not necessarily lighthearted, but it was like a nice dull gray, and then it just got pitch black as soon as this happens. And it just it brings the feeling of the movie into such a serious tone that it's not something that you were really expecting. Like maybe you expected like the tone to turn dark, but not in this way. It's a very out of left field kind of turn, and I think they did it beautifully. Yeah, it's tragic, but
it is tragic. She basically is writing these things about herself. She basically is ashamed at what she did with Bert. And so her penalty for doing what she did with Bert was to write those words on the mirror and then kill herself. Which, God almighty, what a penalty that she has to pay, that she believes she has to pay that penalty to kill herself. I just felt so bad for her. I didn't feel as bad for Eddie, but I felt so bad for her, for Sarah, because she was already a kind of a tragic character to begin with,
Yeah. I mean, she, not only is her character tragic, but the fact that she does take on this, nurturing, mothering role with Eddie and trying to keep him from, I don't know, doing something stupid and getting killed. And then just getting yelled at for it. She's faced a lot of abuse in her life. And, the fact that she does have a gimp leg, it's tragic and awful. She did not deserve it.
No, not at all. So this leads Eddie to, which we knew this was going to come. He goes back to Ames to play Minnesota Fats again. He's only got $3,000. He says, one game, $3,000. And if you win, I walk out the door. It's over. And he says, and he tells Bert, which Bert's in there. He tells Bert, bet on me, I can't lose. Eddie quotes Bert and proceeds to beat Minnesota Fats game after game. Bert gets mad at Eddie, says he owes him money. Now this is kind of, he's already paid Bert his portion. Now all of a sudden, now that Eddie's winning against Minnesota on his own without Bert being there, he's like, oh, you owe me 50%. I'm thinking to myself, how do you think you deserve? Eddie gives you 50%. This is him just really flexing his muscles, saying, you're just going to pay me.
I mean, to be fair, with the relationship they had wait, this is Bert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Bert's just being a jerk. Like, he's just trying to like butt in and like get paid for something that he has no stake in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then he says, what if he doesn't pay him? He'll get his thumbs and arms broken. He is still mad about Sarah and what he should have done for her instead of what he did. So basically, he's going to stick. He's standing up for himself. Eddie is. He's like, what happens? What if I don't pay you? He says, oh, you're going to get your arms broken and your thumbs broken.
Yeah. Basically, going to take away every chance you have of earning a livelihood.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where Eddie goes, I traded the game of pool for a girl, basically saying that he could have had a life with Sarah. Instead, he chose the game of pool, and Sarah ended up killing herself because of it.
Yeah.
Wow. These themes are just incredible. And then Bert, of course, threatens to kill him, or he threatens to kill Bert. Bert says, don't ever walk into a big-time pool hall again. Then Eddie walks out to Minnesota and says, congratulations, Minnesota. Bats does the same. Congratulations to Eddie. And that's the end of the movie. A question I always ask my guests when I do Bleacher Features of what is it about this movie? We just talked about the whole movie that made you say, yeah, I want to get on a camera and I want to come on to the Stranger's show and talk about this movie with him. And in not as many words but
yeah,
this is basically what I always ask my guests, because this is the end of the show. And I kind of want the viewer, whoever watches this, to get a kind of idea of what this film means to you as my guest.
I mean, I feel like Sarah is the tragic main character of this. Like, I feel it's telling her story through the lens of Eddie. And I really like, there's just something so beautifully and sadly tragic about her life and, everything she does for everybody else. I also love the way that, I don't think they intended it, but it's a movie very much, that needs to be watched, especially by, young boys today. Just seeing how toxic masculinity like used to be displayed, and show that like, yeah, there are actual like bad things that happen, and not necessarily to you. Like, it's the pond ripple effect. Your actions towards others create reactions that are outside of your control, and maybe be a kinder person, or pull your head out of your butt and don't be a selfish jerk like Eddie was, because he learned the lesson far too late. We also get the mastery of Gleason in this, who is just a class act through and through. He's just so good. And of course, we just get to stare at Paul Newman, who's so good in this role. He really does embody that I know best, young buck, immortality minded machismo that is so toxic and is something that needs to be addressed. And also, like, he does the character like the downward spiral of the character so beautifully. Like, you can feel him going through all the emotions when he makes that realization that all of this is because of him and his choices, and him not putting other people first, or putting anything first other than himself and what he wants. So yeah, I love a good black and white movie. I mean, honestly, because you don't get distracted by, the color, like, oh, there's a bright lemon yellow car driving in the background. Like there's nothing to distract you like that. It's just like, this is the story. Focus on the words, focus on the facial expressions, and the cast is just astronomically fantastic.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree about your thoughts. And this is where, I want to go back to the comparison of Scorsese's The Color of Money. If you look at Newman in the Hustler, and you look at Newman in The Color of Money, he wins an Academy Award for The Color of Money, and he doesn't win an Academy Award for The Hustler. I don't know who won for Best Actor that year, but how Paul Newman doesn't win an Academy Award for this role is beyond me. And then you give it to him 50 years later or whatever, 30 years later, well, 60s to 80s. So about 35 years later on average. I think it's like 35 years later. And you say to yourself, how does he not win for the better film, the better? But then you think about The Color of Money in regards to The Hustler, say, wow, that is it. He had to play the George C. Scott role, knowing that he already played the Tom Cruise role in the previous film, and he had to play it kind of straight as an arrow. And it makes me appreciate The Color of Money more once I go back and revisit The Hustler. But because he really is all about himself. He is the Vincent character 35 years in the past. And it's kind of interesting how Scorsese made that film work in contrast to The Hustler. And that's and in the black and white, you're right. There's no fancy special effects. Cinematography is cinematography, but
there's no being wide shots. There's it tells the story. It focuses in on the story.
Yeah, it really does. And like you said, the cast is phenomenal. I mean, Jackie Gleason. I mean, some of these character actors, I had them in here. Finley, the guy that plays Finley, just even Jake LaMotta from Raging Bull. The actual Jake LaMotta plays a bartender in here. Keep an eye on the bartenders, because one of them is Jake LaMotta, the guy that Robert De Niro portrays. And
first of all, you should always watch the bartenders in any movie or TV show. They're always the best characters in the scene.
Yeah. Bartenders are great in movies. Well, I really appreciate this, Rachel. Where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RM Silvestrini. You can find me stalking the shows of the Schmodown and everybody who supports that. I'm pretty much anywhere, but my schedule is usually posted on my Twitter. I have every Thursday I do a show on my YouTube channel called Movies, Music, and Mayhem, which is just my favorite thing in the world, where I bring in friends and friends of friends and interview them. We talk about their favorite movies and the movies that made them and what we've been doing during this mayhemic era, trying to keep ourselves sane. So it's a blast. We drink, we hang out, we laugh way too hard. And who knows, the episodes can usually range from 1 hour to 6 hours. So it just depends on, we've had some epic talks. It's been really, really fun, but come by and hang out.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. You could find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Yeah, I do Pinterest. It helps with some things. I use Pinterest for some things. Also, I'm a writer. I'm a film critic here in the Orlando area. I write for a website called disappointmentmedia.com. Don't at me, folks. I didn't come up with the name. I just write for them. I do all kinds of reviews of new movies, but I also do retrospectives of old movies. Like if somebody passes away, like recently Christopher Plummer passed away, and I did a review of Beginners. So I do a lot of that. And my own blog, From the Fourth Row, at wordpress.com, where if I'm not writing for Disappointment Media, I'm writing on my own blog. So you're going to get a lot of writing from me if you follow me on social media and you'll see all my reviews. So for Rachel and myself, goodbye, everybody.